Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. Thursday night, late night edition with EJ and Bob. Bob, how's your summer going?
Wonderful. We just finished up a Steelers Sanctuary podcast a little while ago. We talked about Mike Tomlin. We ranked our head coaches. I'm really excited to talk about who we all agreed was the second best coach in the NFL, Sean McVay, and what he does for the Rams. So yeah, I'm having fun, excited, gearing up for football season. Can't wait.
So EJ, what is the summer like in your area of the country right now?
It feels like in Philly, it just officially hit summer today because we cracked 90 degrees and like everybody's losing their minds. But it feels like summer officially just started today. So I'm ready for it. I got the air conditioner in the windows and all of that, so I'm keeping cool. So I'm here for it.
Well, you see, and the air conditioning is the part that I wanted to hit on. So I work on site at a military base. That's my day job.
Okay.
And they're not turning the AC on. And I'm in it. For those that don't know, I'm in the Ohio area. But anyway, so they sent us home early today because the AC wasn't on. And I'm my house, obviously, where I podcast from, has AC. But it was refreshing to be home early and to be home where there's air conditioning.
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, is it not working or are they just not turning it on?
Yeah. That's a good question. No, are they really pinching that many pennies? Right?
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's not the pennies that you pinch.
No, it's not.
So, yeah, that's not how I would do it. So
I can tell you in Florida, they turn off the AC. Everybody goes home because it'll be 100 degrees by noon in whatever building you're in.
Yeah. And I need to have my AC. It's a necessity now.
Exactly. It is.
So, so we are going to start with the Los Angeles Rams, and we're going to spend some time. We're going to talk about the schemes they run on offense and defense and correlate that a little bit to our draft evaluations of some of the players that they took. But EJ, how would you describe the Rams' offensive scheme?
It is very, very distinct. Once you see, you can see, you take away the jersey numbers and just have guys playing football, and you watch the team line up on offense, you can tell, oh, that's a Sean McVay offense, just by the way they line up and by the way they run their passing concepts and by the way they run their running concepts. Two distinct things that Sean McVay does. This is what he did with his 2024 offense. They run more pre-snap motion than anybody in the NFL. Second is they use reduced splits. Reduced splits, for those that don't know, are when they line their wide receivers up close to the offensive line, close to the line of scrimmage. What that does is it gives all of the wide receivers a free release and makes it hard for the defense to play press man coverage against those wide receivers. Those are two staples in Sean McVay's offense. What they do with the talent they've built an offense that is able to sustain long drives. You have a quarterback that can point and shoot all day long. He doesn't get impatient. He doesn't make a whole lot of mental mistakes. He can get to the end zone 5 yards of play. He has no problem doing that. They have wide receivers they only have one guy that can really stretch the field in Tutu Atwell. The rest of them, last year, it was Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. This year, it's going to be Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. But those are receivers that can move the chains. They're volume catching receivers. They can, catch the ball, give you a little bit, run after the catch, but they're solid route runners and they're precise route runners. And you have a precise quarterback. So you have an offense built on precision that can just incrementally work their way up the field. As far as the running game goes, Sean McVay has incorporated more gap schemes to his offense. For those that don't know, gap schemes are more of the offensive lineman getting a vertical push up the field instead of whereas zone schemes you're running along with the defensive lineman, pushing them along the way. You're on the move. But with gap schemes, you have to have a little bit stronger offensive lineman because they're moving another man against his will. But that's what Sean McVay has incorporated. Those gap schemes are like a duo. He runs a little bit of pin pull, and he runs some counter. They do run some outside zone as well, but most of their from what I've seen from what the games that I watched, it was more of gap scheme runs than zone runs, and they put it together really nicely. It works for them. They make it work. I think the only thing they lack in that offense is that downfield explosion. They don't give Tutu Atwell a whole ton of targets, but that's the only thing I think they're lacking from their offense. Other than that, I mean, Matthew Stafford is an excellent quarterback, and like in that offense, what they do with him, he does an incredible job.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think his duo schemes his duo concepts are really interesting because you think of the Rams and that pre-snap motion and the high-flying offense, but they are an excellent running team and have been. It's really, it's more of a staple for McVay than a lot of people realize. You had Todd Gurley, and now you got Kyron Williams, and you've had good backs in between. And Kyron Williams is a star, especially in fantasy football.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a great job. You take a guy like we talked about this on our podcast tonight about Kevin Dotson and how he in Pittsburgh was a failed player because Pat Meyer's an idiot and played him out of position. I'm just going to say that for my Steeler guys watching. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Kevin Dotson goes to the Rams, gets put where he's supposed to be. All of a sudden, he's an all-pro level guard. And part of it is because, yes, he's more comfortable playing where he should play, but it's also the scheme. There's a real concept there. I think it's going to be very interesting. Like you said, they don't necessarily throw downfield, and I think Devontae Adams, with his age, is going to benefit from those tight schemes in the passing game.
Yep.
But I also think Devontae showed last year, and I don't think he's fallen off very much. He can get down the field, not like he used to, but I think he's going to give him a little bit different threat than Puka gives, and I'm really excited to see what he does. Tyler Higbee and Matthew Stafford have a nice connection. Really interested to see how Terrence Ferguson kind of fits because it's kind of the transition next man up. Higbee's not washed; he plays pretty good, but he does have an injury history. So I'm interested to see what they kind of do with that. I like Tutu Atwell, but he's very small. I would have liked to see them maybe get a guy who's a little bit bigger. I don't love wide receiver that Kanata Mumfield from Pitt. He's okay, but he's a 7th round pick. McVay pulled off magic with Nakua in the 5th round a couple of years ago. So, I mean, maybe, but I saw him play a little bit. I don't think he's going to make the team and make any kind of impact. He could be a developmental player, and McVay's excellent at doing that. But yeah, I mean, McVay's probably the smartest guy not named. I mean, maybe Kevin O'Connell from an offensive standpoint. Certainly Kyle Shanahan. I mean, McVay's just the gold standard of offense. And like you said, he's put so many guys in jobs at this point. A great coach of coaches, and it's kind of unusual for a young guy.
Yeah. I mean, he started early too, and he was good right away. It's incredible what he's doing over there. And to your point about Kanata Mumfield, I think he just looks like a guy. I don't think he's going to make a very big impact this season. But I do agree with you with Devontae Adams. I think taking out switching Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams, I think it's like you getting Cooper Kupp closer to his prime. I think Devontae Adams is he's gonna catch a ton of balls in this offense.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he does because we had the debate, because we've been arguing. We knew Aaron Rodgers was coming, and when Devontae kind of was out there, I was beating the drum. Hey, this guy is not washed. He mentioned he wanted to play for Pittsburgh. I would have liked to seen him in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers. But that being said, Man, that's the next best thing. I mean, as far as arm talent goes, it's Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford. You could argue either one at the top, and I think there's a huge drop off in the NFL. Josh Allen could throw it a mile, but I don't think he's Aaron Rodgers or Matthew Stafford. At least not yet.
Yeah, exactly. And about Matthew Stafford, all you scouts that's listening now, when you want to scout a quarterback playing from the pocket, when you want to see his process behind the pocket, like how fast he identifies his target and how fast the ball gets to him, gets to that target once he identifies it, look at Matthew Stafford and find any player in college that's close enough to that. I mean, like Stafford, his decision making, his ball placement, his accuracy is all on point. He's not a guy that's going to run 40 yards down the field, but he is on time. He is precise. He runs that offense, and that's exactly what coaches want from a quarterback. Stafford, I'm a big fan of Matthew Stafford.
So I love Stafford. I have liked Matthew Stafford for more than a decade.
Yep.
So I have some Detroit history. Like I've lived in the Detroit area for 10 years. I went to college in Michigan, so I have a lot of friends that are Lions fans. And prior to Dan Campbell getting hired, they were slamming Matthew Stafford. And I'm like, Buffalo, like I was a Bills fan. We were having a drought. I said, Buffalo will trade you 3 first-round picks for Matthew Stafford. I guarantee you he's not the problem.
Yep.
Right? So it is great to see him go to the Rams. He is having a lot of success. I definitely agree with you, EJ. To me, he is still playing at an elite level.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like the Rams off season, there was discussion at the beginning of the offseason as does Stafford stay or not.
Yeah.
But realistically, if you have a QB that's playing at that elite level, and then we haven't got to their defense yet, which we will in a second, they have the pieces. But Bob, what were you going to add?
I was going to say, can you imagine if one of two things, either Matthew Stafford early in his career forces a trade out of Detroit, or could you imagine if Detroit had just held on instead of going for Jared Goff? And I know the Rams wanted him and jump-started it. But if Matthew Stafford is the quarterback of the Lions last year and this year, are we talking about back-to-back Super Bowl champions? I think we are.
You might be. We might be. I know in that situation, Matthew Stafford was just done. He was over the Detroit experience. But had he stuck around with that coaching staff, oh my goodness.
Yeah, but we do have to say that Jameson Williams is there because of the Matthew Stafford trade.
Ah, that's true.
Right. So Matthew Stafford doesn't get to throw to Jameson Williams if Matthew Stafford isn't traded, right? They had a couple of years with 2 first-round picks because they also got was it Hutchinson and Gibbs the same year?
They did, but remember, they had to give up a first to get rid of Goff. They had to send a first to the Rams to get or I'm sorry, no, the Rams sent them a first to get rid of Goff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Rams sent a couple, right? Yeah. So that's what I mean. So the Lions have a good formula. We haven't covered them yet, but we can probably do that next week. But there's a formula there where they had 2 first-round picks in a couple of consecutive years. And as we know, EJ, the Eagles had a couple of years where they had 2 first-round picks, and look at where they are right now.
Yeah, it can change your team in a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah. So
and in fairness, the Rams, they went all in for Stafford and it got him a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it worked.
Okay, so Rams offensive question before we pivot to the defense. So let's talk about Kyren Williams as a running back and what your scouting report on him as a running back was relative to them running gap, and then compare and contrast that to Jarquez Hunter. So, Bob, what did you have on Kyren Williams when he came out? Do you remember?
Not a thing. It was totally off my radar, and he's turned into – and I'm kind of reminded – I don't want to go as far as to say that when Mike Shanahan was running Denver, it didn't matter who was back there. They were going to perform. But there were guys like Terrell Davis, obviously, who were phenomenal. But then you go through and you have 5 or 6 other running backs, and it doesn't matter who's running behind that line and behind that scheme. It works. I honestly kind of believe that from the post Todd Gurley time. Kyron Williams has he's special. As far as Hunter coming out this year, he's okay. I mean, but I could probably think of eight or 10 running backs off the top of my head that I would have rather had, and frankly, picking them in the 4th round that they could have had. I would be really interested to see what Damian Martinez would have done in this offense, because it's a kind of a different. Gurley was a bigger back, but he had speed. Kyron Williams is more of a speed guy. I would have liked to seen what a power guy does in his double team schemes.
Yeah. And EJ and Bob, you actually hit a little bit of where I was going. Is I didn't have Kyron Williams as a power running back when he came out, but EJ, what was your assessment of Williams, and then how do you compare and contrast that to the running game scheme and then Jarquez Hunter?
Yeah, so this is where I get to pat myself on the back, because coming out of Notre Dame, I liked Kyron Williams, and I got into this whole thing on Twitter with some fantasy guys because he ran a 4.7 at the combine, and all the fantasy guys, oh, he can't play, he's not going to make it in NFL. I'm like, dude, this kid can play. He's not a burner, he's not fast, but he is shifty. He's quick. He's got good lateral quickness. He has good vision. That type of running back can survive in the NFL. And lo and behold, what does he do? He survives in the NFL. More than survives in the NFL. So with him is like he can play like the gap scheme works to what his strengths are, because he has good vision, he has good patience. When you're running gap scheme, you have to wait for your offensive lineman to get to their blocks and make their blocks, and then you have to cut off of them. So he has good patience, good vision, and he has quickness, lateral quickness. So that way, when you're the definition of gap scheme, you're cutting through the gaps. So he has that type of quickness. So it works to what he does well. So playing in that gap scheme, he can play zone because he knows how to put his foot in the ground and get downfield. So it works. I mean, Sean McVay knew what he was getting when he drafted Kyron Williams, and he tweaked his offense to make it work with Kyron Williams. With Jarquez Hunter, he is probably in that running back rotation, in that running back room. He's probably the best pure athlete in that room, but he doesn't have the creativity as a runner like Blake Corum has, like Kyron Williams has. He is going to get what's blocked for him. He has good straight line speed. He's got good size too, so he can run over some guys. He's got more of the power element to him, but he's not a guy that's just gonna create something out of nothing. He's gonna get what's blocked for him and what's blocked for him only. He doesn't have that type of creativity as a runner, but he still can be useful in that running back rotation because he offers something that neither one of the top 2 running backs have. He has size and he has a little bit more speed and he has a little bit more power to his game. So there can be a role for him. I don't know if it's going to be a lot of touches for him because all these running backs are still young, and so he's going to have to fight his way through and work his way up that ladder in that rotation. But he has some traits that the other running backs on the roster don't have.
I don't know how you feel, but I could see Blake Corum starting to eat into a little bit of Kyron Williams carries here because, McVay has shown. I mean, let's face it, he was Gurley left, Gurley right early, but since then he's kind of shown. I'm not necessarily married to the back. Kyron Williams has had 2 really good years, and I think he's still good enough. But like you said, Blake Corum is kind of coming along.
Yep.
So maybe he starts to shift and it becomes more of a 50-50 thing with, Hunter, eventually becoming the split with Corum as they phase Williams out. You get 2 or 3, 4 good years out of him, move him on.
Yeah. I mean, and because Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, they're kind of the same guy. They're both smaller running backs, very shifty, not a lot of long speed, but they're good all around running backs. They're very, very similar players. So I don't know if you really need both of them on the roster, but you see how it works out.
Okay. So Bob, what do you have on the Rams defensive scheme?
Rookies and more rookies. Now the Rams, they're a little bit vanilla, and I think that's because they're so young. It's a 4-3. They do play multiple coverages, and they like the dime. They in passing situations. So they are extremely young. They've got a couple guys like last year, Jared Verse. Looks like that's going to be a big hit for them. I like the fact that look, when you're building a team at this point in the NFL, you're either going to spend all your money on offense and go young on defense, or you're going to go all your money on defense and go young on offense. Spending all your money on defense doesn't necessarily work. Steelers are a great example of that. So you got to either balance, or Kansas City's been doing this for years now, and the Rams have been doing it, since they went out and bought guys like Ramsey to get to the Super Bowl. But now it's all young guys, and I think Chris Shula really does a good job working with what he's got, and I think he will add more concepts to it as they go. But they got a lot of young pieces that are starting to fit together. And the second half of last year, that defense was really good. I'm talking top 10 good. And they're not really throwing a lot of wrinkles at anybody yet. I don't know how many wrinkles you need to throw at people in the NFC West. I think Arizona is still kind of a mess. Seattle's, I don't believe in Sam Darnold at all. Shanahan, yeah, that's a complicated offense that you're going to have to go against. But it's Brock Purdy running it, and there's a lot of what ifs in San Francisco right now. I think they'll be back to good this year, but there's a lot of what ifs. So you could get by playing vanilla a little bit more with these young guys and let them develop along. I'd like to see them blitz a little more, but otherwise, man, they have hit on most of these picks. And I really like a guy out of Ole Miss, and I've made this point on our podcast a lot of times. Chris Paul is a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what – I know they just missed the playoffs, but I don't know what Lane Kiffin was doing. There are so many good players. You have got to convert that, and it was a down year in the SEC. I think Chris Paul becomes a starter probably no later than week 4 or week 6, and I think they'll be better for it.
They will be.
So, EJ, what do you have on the Rams' defensive scheme?
They're a faster defense. What they do in base situations, they answer 12 like base personnel, like 12 personnel, 13 personnel, and in any heavy tight end situations, they answer with a 5-man front. But mainly when they're playing against 11 personnel, they answer with your base 4-2-5 defense. They're a very fast defense. They're excellent pass rushers. I mean, right across the board, I'm a huge fan of Jared Verse, huge fan of Kobe Turner, huge fan of Braden Fisk, and who else am I? Oh, Byron Young. That's a foursome right there that can get after the quarterback. Only issue with that is a smaller group of defenders. All of them, especially your defensive tackles, all under 300 pounds, and they can get run on, as we saw. Saquon Barkley over 200 yards, 2 games against the Rams. They can get run at. Last year they could get run on. That's why they went and got Poona Ford, he's a very, very solid player, but he's 5'11", 310 pounds. He's going to be their nose tackle. He's going to help them try to stop the run. And then the addition of Chris Paul, that's going to help on the second level to try and stop against the run. But they're still a smaller, faster defense, more than a stout defense, and that's how they're going to have to live, because that's how their young guys are, and that's how they play best. Coverage wise, they play a lot of zone coverage. It doesn't seem like they value athletes at the cornerback position or in the defensive backfield. I mean, you got 2 very good safeties. I like Cameron Kitchens and Cameron Curl. They're good safeties back there. I don't think they value athleticism a ton at the cornerback position. They got Kilo Witherspoon and Darius Williams. They play a lot of zone. That's probably why they play a lot of zone. They keep everything in front of them. They do play some man. When they play man, they play 2-man. That's with the 2 safeties over top of everything, and everybody else playing man coverage underneath. That works for them. Like their scheme works for them, but it's all predicated on your defensive line has to get pressure. If your defensive line is not getting pressure, the team is going to pick you apart. Because I watched that shootout between the Bills and the Rams. And whenever they didn't get pressure, Josh Allen would just pick them apart. He would just sit there and find holes in their zone. But they have to get pressure on the quarterback on a consistent basis, and they have to be a little bit tougher against the run.
Yeah, and to add to what you said, so they did draft 2 players that I liked on defense for the front 4, specifically. Now I got to remember Stewart from Michigan, Josiah Stewart.
Josiah Stewart, yeah.
Josiah Stewart from Michigan. So undersized off the edge, but I think that fits in with the smaller nature of the defense. And then Ty Hamilton, if memory serves me correctly, he was more of a 3 tech.
Yep.
To Tyleek Williams, 1 tech at Ohio State.
Yep. So that's what they want to lean into, yeah.
So I remembered looking at the Josiah Stewart pick the moment the Rams drafted him, because I wouldn't have had the Rams going defensive line on day 2. Right. I would not have done that in any mock draft. I'm like, they have 4 really good defensive linemen. EJ, you listed them all off.
Yep.
I'd be like, they're going to go linebacker, or they would go tight end, or they're going to go somewhere else, like add some athleticism at corner or something, right? No, they went with the defensive line, and they have 6 defensive linemen at least on rookie deals.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're deep. They're deep, and it works out for them too.
Yep.
Yeah, they've shown in the past, if they start to feel like they're a corner away, they'll go get one. I mean, although I almost wonder, because they went way up, way down, way up, way down, and they're now starting to take their draft picks, if maybe they've learned that, okay, yes, we went all in and we got to a Super Bowl. Then we went all in again and won a Super Bowl. But it left us cash poor or cap strapped. We had to trade everybody away and start over. Is McVay willing to go and start over again, or did he maybe say, "Okay, guys, yeah, let's get our pieces, let's get our core, and now let's kind of build through the draft and key free agents versus, okay, give up 3 first rounds, get Jalen Ramsey, and go to the Super Bowl."
Yeah.
Well, my take on that is actually the exact opposite. So, first of all, the Rams have 2 first-round picks next year, right? Because they traded with Atlanta. They traded back, so they have Atlanta's first-round pick and their first-round pick next year, right? So the Rams are probably trying to get enough draft capital to grab one of the quarterbacks. So I understand that. But my opinion is the Rams window is about to open bigger. We're not at the end of a window. We're at the end of Matthew Stafford, but we're not at the end of a window.
That's true.
Right. If you look, they had the roster, and they won the Super Bowl over the Bengals. They had to tear it down immediately. Von Miller gone, Jalen Ramsey gone, Leonard Floyd gone.
Donald retires.
Right, but there were like 3 or 4 players that had to exit the roster immediately after the Super Bowl. Right, because I even think Sammy Watkins was on that Super Bowl team, and he was not on the team the year after. Same thing, right? They had to let go of a lot, literally months after winning the Super Bowl. They have built it back up, and they actually built it back up without draft capital, right? Because there was a year they didn't have a first, and whether or not they had a second, they had to have UDFAs make the roster because that was the only way they could fit underneath the salary cap.
Yeah.
And now look at where they are. I mean, to me, it's a clinic on this is how you build a team, because I would love to go all in, right? Like if I'm Brandon Buffalo, I'm like, you definitely do that and you win one. And once you win one, you have job security for a long time.
Exactly. Yep. At least three or 4 years.
And I get what you're saying, where the talent on the roster is opening it wide. But then you look at Devontae Adams, 33, 34. Matthew Stafford is, you got him back, and he's still very high-level quarterback. But if you're going to get a quarterback next year, and you're going to use those 2 first, and let's say get up into the top 10, you have the luxury maybe of sitting him behind Stafford 1 year, but it's going to come calling in 2 years. And then with the rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, it theoretically does. But if you missed on that guy, then all of a sudden you got issues.
Well, you're right. It's a calculated move. If you move on from Matthew Stafford, that's a calculated move. I don't know for certain. Is this the last year of his deal, or does he have more years left after this?
Did he sign a 1-year deal, or was it I don't know if it was multi-year or
Let me
not.
find out. I'm looking it up now. I know that there is a lot of friction in the organization. It's a 2-year deal, and it's not necessarily with him and McVay. Apparently, it's the wives, and then it's that gets interesting. Can that really? Would the Rams be willing to just move on because of Matthew Stafford's wife's podcast?
Oh,
I mean, that's where it gets interesting. I mean, let's face it, he's going to be 38 next year. So, look, I couldn't think of a better mentor for a rookie. But
if you have that offensive line, you can play a 40-year-old quarterback. Right.
Yeah, the way he plays, because he's a pocket passer anyway, so he can do that for a little while. It all depends on what he wants to do. I don't know if he still wants to play, or if the Rams, draft somebody behind him, does he want to play mentor, or does he want to go somewhere else and maybe take one more shot at the Super Bowl? Pretty much, I think Stafford is going to call his own shot here, and that's going to dictate what the Rams do going forward.
And kind of put up some stinkers though in the second half of last season. There were some games where at first there wasn't much expected, but then down the stretch, there were some 12-9 losses where they couldn't score a touchdown, couldn't move the ball.
Yeah.
And he took a beating in Detroit. He took a beating. So I don't know that his body could hold up into his 40s like Rodgers, like Brady, like guys like that who, with very little exceptions, Brady with the knee, Rodgers with the Achilles, they didn't take a lot of sacks, didn't take a lot of punishment in their careers. Matthew Stafford got beat up.
He got beat up.
So, and there's always the adage: you get rid of the player a year early versus a year late.
True.
I think if the Rams feel that they can make the playoffs with Stafford, he's on the roster. But if the Rams don't make the playoffs this year, I don't see Stafford being there.
No.
12 months from now.
10 in 16 games, he was 10-6, but just to compare to, everybody who's down on Aaron Rodgers, always washed, so he's too old. Rodgers threw for almost 4,000 yards. Matthew Stafford was 3,700. He was 20-8. Aaron was 28-11. So, who's actually washed here? I mean, I hope not. I hope Stafford has one more big year in him because I like him and I root for him. But, I think he's a lot closer to the end. I think he gets through 25. I think there's a chance he just says at the end of 25, especially if they go far in the playoffs, okay, I'm good. I'm done.
Okay. So let's pivot to the other team we're covering today, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. EJ, what do you want to tell us about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense?
Defense, their defense was not good in 2024. So what they were doing on defense, all right, let's start with the defensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, that's his defense. He runs a gap shooting, aggressive, blitzing defense. What they want to do is they want to attack the line of scrimmage, get in the backfield, create turnovers, cause chaos. He wants his guys shooting up the field at the snap of the ball. He doesn't want his defensive ends or defensive tackles reading and reacting. He wants everybody shooting, attacking the quarterback. Behind him, he leans into man coverage more than likely. Mainly cover one. If he's going to play some zone, it's going to be cover three. But he leans into the single high coverages. The issue with the defense last year was that he didn't have the horses to play the style that he wanted to play. You had like guys like Kalijah Kancey He's a smaller defensive tackle, but he's built for that style of play. He's very quick, very twitchy. He can get upfield. You got Vita Vea. He plays their nose tackle when they go into their eye fronts. He's an excellent run stuffer. He's an excellent player, but he's more of a run stuffer. He can push the pocket, but he's not that explosive guy that's going to shoot up the field. Yaya Diaby on the edge. He was a pleasant surprise. He's a pretty good player, but he's not enough. Their main issue, from what I saw, I watched them against the Cowboys at the end of the season, and I watched them in the playoffs against the Commanders. And from what I saw was when they tried to play man, number 35, he was not up to the task athletically. Like against the Commanders, 35, Jamel Dean, they put him in man coverage against Scary Terry McLaurin. And Terry McLaurin could do what he wanted to Jamel Dean anytime he wanted to. Just Jamel Dean wasn't athletically equipped to play with Terry McLaurin. On the other side, you have their other cornerback, Zion McCollum, who has more than adequate athletically. He's very talented athletically, but he's a notch below in skill. When I say notch below in skill, his footwork isn't always up to par. He doesn't locate the ball in the air the way he should. So that leads to him getting mossed, him getting pass interference penalties, or him just losing contact with the wide receiver. So those are your two corners right there that you want to put in man coverage. Both of them can get got, and both of them did get got. That's why they passed for – the offense was excellent. They passed for about 4,500 yards on the season. The defense gave up about 4,600 yards on the season. So they had issues in coverage. As far as the aggressive front, that can be used against them because smarter offensive coaches, they know you want to attack. They know you want to get after the quarterback. They'll invite the blitz. They'll invite the aggressive pass rush, and they'll just throw a screen pass right behind it, which is what happened against the Commanders. And another thing is you have your smarter quarterbacks who can see the blitz is coming from a mile away, and they can hit the slant or they can hit the open area where your blitzer is coming from, and now you've given up a big chunk play. They gave up a bunch of big chunk plays, and with their aggressive defensive scheme, sometimes they still didn't get home to the quarterback. So, which is why they added Hassan Reddick this season. They added who else they added? I think they added another safety. They added Hassan Reddick. They drafted
Morrison and Parrish.
Yeah, they drafted Morrison and Parrish. Now, Parrish, you don't know if they're going to put him in the nickel or they're going to put him on the outside. Either way, he probably will be an upgrade in the future. But you're really banking on Benjamin Morris taking over for Jamel Dean. It's all about that hip because they need somebody. If they want to play that type of man coverage, they need somebody that can actually handle man coverage. When they went to zone coverage, their communication was bad. That's why they was leaving wide receivers wide open because in zone coverage, you have to be able to communicate with the guy next to you. Like, hey, I'm passing this off. When you're passing off coverage, it's just like passing off a baton in a relay race. Both y'all have to be on the exact same page. And when they were in zone coverage, nobody was on the same page. Somebody was passing a wide receiver off and nobody was there to pick them up. So it's like they have to pick what they want to do and they have to focus on that and do it well because they didn't play either coverage very well in 2024. But mainly they have to add to their pass rush. They have to, if they want to be aggressive, they have to add to their pass rush. Hassan Reddick is going to help. Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby coming off the edge, that's going to be a big help for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hassan Reddick is going to be a huge key for them. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if Parrish can take the job from Smith at nickel. I do think long-term that's an upgrade for them. I am not a fan of Benjamin Morrison. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I saw it up close 2 years ago. I thought he was going to be a superstar last year with the injury and everything else, but I think he's played his best football, and I don't know that you come back from a hip. I hope I'm wrong for his sake and for Tampa's sake. I really hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But that being said, could he maybe? Yes. But if I'm picking a guy in round 2, pick 21, there were other guys on the board who were maybe yes, who aren't coming off hip injuries, who I could have had. Now, that being said, Todd Bowles typically, if Reddick can help the pass rush, he would rather bring 4 and drop 7. The Tampa 2 is called the Tampa 2 for a reason. Todd Bowles likes that defense. They run that defense. They don't run it very well last year, but they do that. That is a concept that they want to bring. So it'll be interesting to see. And maybe you can hide Morrison if you do a little more zone versus man. I mean, he'll be better than Jamal Dean, I think, but Jamal Dean is kind of washed, kind of cooked. So I'll be interested to see how Bowles has always been a kind of bend don't break guy.
Yeah.
They play better in the red zone than they do down the field. But like you said, EJ, they were giving up so many big plays. It didn't matter. I mean, people were scoring from 30, 40, 50 yards out.
Yep.
No problem. I mean, we could stop them in the red zone. The problem is we don't let them stay in the red zone.
They never got to the red zone. They just passed right on past it.
Yeah, and I think Todd Bowles is a smart defensive coach. I just think, and kind of this is, look, the Bucs were a Super Bowl team 4 or 5 years ago, and they're still kind of restacking and rebuilding on the fly. And Baker Mayfield has been a nice story. They didn't fall off when Tom Brady left, but they're still kind of piecing it together. They got a lot of old pieces on that team. So I think it's a process. And kudos to them, Todd Bowles. He's keeping them relevant in a rebuild.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Bob, where did you have David Walker and Elijah Roberts in the draft process? So those were day 3 picks for the Buccaneers, but what was your assessment of those players coming into the season?
Full confession, when I was evaluating for the Steelers, I did not even look at edge because we have T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Hall of Fame Nick Herbig, and now we got Jack Sawyer. Well, I still think is a huge mistake, wasted pick. So, as far as those guys go, I mean, the Central Arkansas kid was interesting. There was buzz that he could have gone on day 2. So, I think there's a chance that guy could maybe be a nice rotational piece for them. I don't think either one of those guys are going to be starters, but we'll see. If they can form the depth where Reddick is not, exactly a young guy. If these two guys can come in behind and give their edge rushers a little bit of a break and maybe get into a 70-30 rotation, I think it could be really interesting. I do think Walker has upside, though, because, everything I saw had him in, and I was really surprised he slipped to day 3. Everything I kind of glanced at edge rusher had him as a day 2 pick.
So, EJ, did you have Walker as an edge or a designated pass rusher?
Designated pass rusher. I don't think he's a pure edge. He's a little bit undersized. I don't think he's a pure edge, so it's going to be some packages for him to rush the passer, but I don't think he's every down starter. I do think Elijah Roberts out of SMU, he has a path to becoming a good contributor. He's got the athletic traits to do it. He's similar to who they have when they go to their 5-man fronts. They got Logan Hall and Kalijah Kancey as their 4 eyes. He's similar player to Logan Hall. Logan Hall is a highly athletic player, but he hasn't been very productive. Elijah Roberts is in that same type of mode. He's got good size, got good athleticism, got good play strength. So he's a guy that can probably fit into that 4-eye role. He'll probably be in a rotation. I'm not sure if he has starter upside, but when you're playing defense like that, you just need the bodies. You need the bodies to that can contribute. I think he should be eventually a good contributor there. It seems like a lot of Tampa Bay fans are excited about that big fat guy that they signed from undrafted free agent from Florida. He's like 468 pounds.
Oh yeah.
I'd be surprised if he actually makes the team, but if he actually gets on the field, it'll be interesting to see how he does out there.
Yeah, there was some buzz in our podcast chat that, hey, they should go get this guy, and I was like, no.
Yeah, no.
Fans always like the big 350-pound nose tail.
Yeah.
But not every defensive scheme. Now, the Buccaneers have Vita Vea, so they like players like that in the scheme. But players I think fans like those players more than some front offices do.
Yeah. Because fans see the big guy like, oh, he's a big guy. He can beat up on little guys. But they don't realize that big guy has to take a breather every time he takes 3 steps. So it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure they probably already asked him to lose weight because you can't. It's not even healthy for him to be playing at that type of weight. So, and it'll be interesting. It'll probably be a good story for their beat writers out there.
We're all a little older. If we were playing in the NFL, we'd be retired.
Oh yeah.
You guys remember Tab Thacker? He was a guy who was a huge college football player, wrestler, 450, 500-pound behemoth. And he had an awesome career as an actor in the Police Academy movies. If this kid doesn't drop 100 pounds, he better hope for a Police Academy revival.
Yeah. So why don't we pivot to the Buccaneers offense? Bob, how would you describe the Buccaneers offensive scheme?
In transition, because obviously their offensive coordinator is now coaching in Jacksonville. That being said, they're a very balanced offense. I know that they want to try to get the ball downfield a little more this year. Look, Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer, and I have loved watching his career. But at some point, doesn't he have to take a step back? Chris Godwin's coming off a major knee injury. He's a burner, but he's 30 coming off a knee injury. I wasn't a huge fan of Emeka Egbuka. I wasn't as high on him as everybody else was coming out. I do think he's a polished route runner guy, but he's also an older rookie. I think he could fit in really well with Baker Mayfield, though, as ending up being his go-to guy. Because although I don't see any of those 3 guys as downfield threats. So Godwin absolutely is if he's healthy, but if he's not, then I don't know what you do there. Their running game is kind of interesting. They do as more of a zone-based scheme. So, and Bucky Irving, wasn't on anybody's really radar coming out, but he turned out to be, another guy who was kind of slow at the combine, but they used him very effectively last year. I like Rachaad White, but by the end of the year, Bucky Irving was the guy.
Yeah.
And Rachaad White was the guy who spelled him. So I think their defense or their offense is going to be interesting. I'm kind of interested to see where it goes. I think even though they ran the ball effectively, I think they got into some shootouts because of that defense and relied way too much on the pass. I think you could still, if it's down in the red zone, I think Mike Evans is still a huge target. But if you're going to rely on him to catch 100 balls again this year because Godwin's hurt and the rookie, I don't know that works out for them.
Yeah, so EJ, how do you have the Buccaneers offense?
They have potential to be good. We got to see what the new offensive coordinator wants to do, but they have a good group of wide receivers. They're 4 deep at wide receivers. You got Micah Evans, you got Chris Godwin, you got Emeka Egbuka, you got Jalen McMillan, who you drafted last year from Washington. They're all solid players. Mike Evans is a walking Hall of Famer, so pencil him in for 1,000 yards. That's what he does, every year of his career. Chris Godwin, you got to see where he's at coming off the injury, but you have weapons on the outside. I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be a excellent target for Baker in the middle of the field. As far as what Emeka brings to the table to that offense, that the other guys don't really do, is his run after the catch ability. So if they can get him out in space and get him running after the catch, that would be a different dynamic to that offense. The other aspect of that would be Baker Mayfield himself. In 2 games I watched, he left a little bit of meat on the bone. He can be a little bit frenetic in the pocket sometimes. There are some instances where he gets pressure in his face and his eyes drop and he misses a wide open wide receiver. Now, when they say quarterback drops his eyes, he's looking at when we react to what we see in front of us. quarterback is supposed to be looking beyond the line of scrimmage, downfield, looking for his options to pass to. When you drop your eyes, you're looking at the rushers coming towards us. And what do we naturally do when we see a car coming right at us? We say, "Oh shit, let me get out the way." That's what he did a couple of times. You saw him drop his eyes, and you watched him say, "Oh shit," because his mechanic, they're in a position to throw the ball. His mechanics drop. That's the oh shit moment right there. His mechanics drop. He's looking to run away instead of pass the ball downfield. Meanwhile, it's a guy running wide open down the field. I've seen that instance against the Cowboys. I've seen that instance against the Commanders. There are instances there too, which speaks to the 16 interceptions, which is close to the top of the league that they had. But with the added weapons that they have, they just make it easy for Baker. Just tell Baker point and shoot, because somebody's going to be open. As far as their running game, just like Bob said, they're more of a zone team. I would say their running game is more finesse than it is power. With Bucky Irvin, they're attacking the edges. They're running outside zone. They're running wide zone. They're running toss sweeps. I don't think Bucky Irving himself is not built to straight run the ball down somebody's throat, nor is that offensive line built to run the ball down somebody's throat. I mean, Tristan Wirfs is all world everything. It's just the other four guys that aren't built like that. So their best bet is continue to run zone. I would like to see them use Bucky Irving in the passing game a little bit more, because he is dynamic in space. He does have a good burst and everything to get extra yardage. So I would like to see them use Bucky Irving in the passing game. I would say for the Buccaneers, lean all the way into the passing game. You got a ton of targets. Just pass the ball. Don't make no bones about it. Just be a passing team. Make that your bread and butter, because that's where all your talent is. Just air the ball out as much as Baker Mayfield can. I think that would be their best option, just to throw the ball all over the field. If they're struggling, if Baker's making bad decisions, or if guys are just not getting open, or the offensive line is not blocking, then you really have trouble. This is a really boom or bust offense, because if your offensive line, if any part of that offense is not working, they don't have like we can just run the ball. They don't have that option, because they're not very good at it. If somebody's going to load up and stop the run, they can stop the Bucs running game. But their passing game is what has the potential to be unstoppable. So I think they should lean into that as much as possible.
And I think Baker's done a really good job in Tampa Bay. He still can be baited into hero ball.
Mm-hmm.
But in Cleveland, he played hero ball.
Yeah.
In Tampa, he's been more of a structure. And I don't know if that's because, Mike Evans, absolutely first ballot Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Godwin is when he was healthy, is a very talented guy. Mm-hmm. I last year was Sterling Shepard, kind of a reliable guy for him. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of played within structure. And I think that's where they get in trouble. Like you said, with his dropping, is if you can get him off his spot, off mm-hmm. and start trying to process and play on the run. He thinks he can run, he can't.
Yep.
And that's where what has hurt him in the past. So if all you got to do, I mean, if I'm playing Baker Mayfield, I'm zero blitzing him over and over and over and over again. And I know he's been pretty good against the blitz the last 2 years, mm-hmm. but I'm still trying to force him into, okay, man, I'm going to hit somebody deep. I'm going to hit somebody deep, because I still don't, 100% rely on him. But I mean, good for him for making the Browns look like absolute idiots for getting rid of him.
Yeah. Like, he's a guy, he's best in structure. When you get him on the moves, he's one of those guys that thinks he's a better athlete than what he really is. So he's like, in his mind, he's Lamar Jackson out there running around. But in reality, somebody's bearing down on him and they're going to knock his head off. But the more Baker stays in structure, the better he is.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see since Liam Cohen is in Jacksonville, if the new coordinator can keep him in structure.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's look at. I think the Buccaneers wide receiver room and some scouting. So compare and contrast, Bob, Jalen McMillan and Tez Johnson to how you had them graded coming out of school.
I mean, I think Tez Johnson went in the 7th round for a reason. I mean, he's got some intriguing skills, but I don't see. I like McMillan coming out. I was surprised they didn't use him more last year, and he was a guy as they approached the deadline, and the Steelers were just scrounging around for anything at the wide receiver position. His name came up a lot with fans. With hey, Tampa's not using this guy. Maybe they think he's a bust. Let's go get him. I think he will play a bigger role this year. I think he's probably going to have to step in for Chris Godwin. So, I Tez Johnson is kind of a guy that, look, he's either going to turn into, hey, you have hit a gold mine, or hey, man, he'll hang around the league a little bit as a special teamer. I don't see him being in the mix for them this year. I really don't.
EJ, how about you? Between McMillan and Tez Johnson, how would you compare them as prospects?
As prospects, it was like I looked at Tez Johnson as, purely a deep threat speed guy. At the Senior Bowl, nobody could cover him. That's just because, he was quicker than everybody else. But he's such a physical outlier. He's so small. It's hard to see a path to continued success there. Especially when he ran like a 4.5 something at the combine. So is it more quickness or is it true speed? I think he's just more explosive and acceleration than long speed. So I think there's a package that they can use him in because he can get open. He's quick and he's pretty fast. Jalen McMillan, I think he was more of a pure slot receiver. He's, obviously he's a bigger player. I think he's more of a pure slot receiver. Good route runner, solid hands. He's a guy that's just he'll find holes in zones and he'll get open for you. He'll make his money in playing against off coverage, and he can get open there. I think Jalen McMillan is just a solid player, more limited upside, but his floor is high. He is what he is. He can be a good slot receiver. He can get open. He can make passes for you. Tez Johnson is much more volatile. He can either be a Pro Bowler outlier, or he can be out of the league in a year. One or the other, but is no in between. I think if they can find the right role for Tez Johnson that highlights his quickness, his speed, and all that, if they can find that and just put that in a bottle and keep that, then he'll be just fine.
And I was going with Tez Johnson. I think that's a lightning in the bottle. Yeah. And my opinion is, and this is going to be a Tank Dell comp because they're both small players. Mm-hmm. When you have a player like Tez Johnson, you shouldn't be expecting to get 4 years out of it.
Exactly.
The 1 or 2 years that they are lightning in a bottle, mm-hmm. you use them, but that's not a body type that's going to have a 7 or 8 year NFL career. Exactly. So when they're on the first contract and you can harness it for, a 7-game stretch, including the playoffs or something, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Bob, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, he could be a really good run after catch guy. He absolutely could. But first of all, Baker Mayfield's a shorter quarterback. He's not Russell Wilson small, but he's small.
Yeah.
So a guy like that, you got to get him, to me, in crossing routes and have him coming across the formation. And, maybe if you're inviting the blitz a little bit, kind of throw it where the blitz is, and he could maybe make something really special happen. I don't know if he could be the punt returner, but if he could, I say get him in space, get him in gadgets. But, I mean, I do not like smaller wide receivers. I just don't. If you're under 6 feet, I mean, no offense. There's a place for you in NFL offenses. Just wouldn't be on mine. I want bigger wide receivers. I'm totally happy with 2 6'4" guys, even if they're not burners, and give me a 6'1" guy who can kind of cook it across the field. That being said, you got to have the right quarterback. You got to have the right scheme. We don't know enough about this new coordinator to know that that's going to be the right scheme. So that's where I think a guy like McMillan, who's 6'1", a little bit bigger, I think he'll be a little more durable. You could maybe have him run more hook routes and things like that. You don't have to get him on a crossing route. I always feel like a small guy like that, if you don't hit him on a crossing route or a quick slant, he doesn't have much of a chance to win against most NFL corners.
Yeah, and the thing with Tez is, like, I'm not concerned about his height so much as I'm concerned about his weight. Like 160 pounds, I mean, guys will tear him in half. I mean, if he gets hit cleanly, he might get put to sleep. So like, you worry about the player's safety more than anything else. And like, you look at a guy, say like Devontae Smith. He came in the league at about 170 pounds. He's not that anymore. He's bulked up. But he was a skinny guy, but he was even more built than what Tez Johnson is now. So like, I just worry about the actual player's safety, because he really is a small guy. He's a guy that if he slid after he catches a pass, if he slid, I wouldn't be mad at him. I wouldn't be mad if he slid, because I don't want to see him taking the hits. I don't want to see him getting carried out on a stretcher or anything like that.
And I mean, you really don't want that guy. I mean, you get him running like maybe a 5-yard slant down the field, and he's coming across, and a linebacker lines him up. I saw it. Look, the Steelers with Calvin Austin. They got a small guy. He's fast. He's hurt his first year, but I watched him get knocked out of a game running a slant across the middle, caught the ball, and boom, linebacker just racked him because he's 5'9" and 110 pounds. I mean, not really. I mean, he's 125 soaking wet. But that being said, yeah, your point is, yes, you got to worry about. Hey, man, just go down. It's okay. It's okay. Get what you got. I want you to run after the catch. Now, that being said, if you get the defender on your hip and you catch that guy in a crossing route, he's gone.
Yeah,
he's gone.
Yep.
So why don't we pause here for a quick commercial? Bob, do you want to let every one of our Draft Professor listeners know who you are?
Yes. One of the hosts of Steelers Sanctuary. We're a growing podcast. We have a lot of fun. We go live on Monday and Thursdays. We have a lot of great guests like Nick Faribault, Alan Saunders, Zach Smith's been on, Tony Serino. So, we have a good mix of that. Trent King has been doing a great job as kind of a regular guest on the show. We talk Steelers and more Steelers, not your regular Steelers podcast. It's not a rah-rah podcast. We tell it like it is, with the good and the bad. And we have a new sponsor, Ultra GM. Highly recommend you check that out. But yeah, join us. Our chat is crazy. So yeah, come on. It's a lot of fun.
EJ.
Hey, everybody, I'm EJ. You see my Twitter handle right there at the bottom of the screen. Follow me on X. What I do for you, I give you player evaluations, scheme breakdowns, no hot takes, no clickbait. Pretty much what you want to know about a player, film analysis, all that good stuff, all the good stuff, none of the BS. If you're into that type of stuff, give me a follow and let me know.
Hey, you can follow the channel at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. It's the same on YouTube and Twitter. And we have daily draft content. So we have at Draft Professor on this channel a podcast on the draft every day. Right before this podcast, we recorded our first top 10 podcast. So you're going to be seeing that air once I produce all of it and get those podcasts fired up. But you'll see Bill and Randall alternating, defensive line, edge, linebacker, etc., going through all the defensive boards. In 2 weeks, we're recording our first offensive top 10 board. But we have draft content coming at you literally every day. Mondays and Tuesdays, we are breaking down specific college teams. It is Michigan State and South Carolina on Monday, Tuesday next week. Wednesdays and Thursdays, we're breaking down NFL schemes. Fridays, we're breaking down quarterbacks. So just tune in, follow on Twitter. You'll know which players we're talking about. And maybe we're going to talk about one of your favorite college football players coming up soon. In addition to that, we have many people that are doing summer scouting. I think EJ, you're in the middle of summer scouting. How big is your board right now?
My board. I think I just topped 100. So I'm sifting through guys and ranking them and getting them in the right positions. So I'm well on. I'm not close to where everybody else is at, but I'm getting there.
And I think there's more people where you are, EJ. We can't measure ourselves by Bill Sparks.
Oh,
I think that's Bill Sparks has a 500 player board, but Bill has a process so that he's been evaluating some of these guys for 3 years. So he knows about, where he has them graded, and he can just find the players he hasn't graded yet and continually add them. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of draft professors are right where EJ is, approximately 100 to 120 players graded. And as the summer rolls on, you are going to see our full 500 player watch list. You're going to see top 10s from EJ, Bob, other draft professors. We are going to keep the draft content coming for the next 11 months. So buckle up. That being said, we have 80 podcasters at the Draft Professor that are helping us pump out daily draft content. So thank you to all of them. Thank you to Bob, EJ for being live today on Mrs. R Relevant, the Daily Draft Podcast. We're going to sign off now, and we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow, everybody.